Do Irish pagans in the Southern Hemisphere need to flip the wheel of the year? Well, Tag the Agus Fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome. John O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School here. And this is a Kester question that we get from our students in the Southern Hemisphere, people in Australia or anywhere south of the equator, because the seasons are different. And for people of Irish descent or people who are practicing Irish paganism, it can get a little bit confusing. And I hopefully am going to straighten out some of that confusion with this video. So the first thing really to understand is that in Irish paganism, there is no one set wheel of the year. This is a later construct, this whole eight-spoke wheel of the year structure that is quite common in a lot of paganism or neo-paganism isn't Irish at all. It's a 12th century kind of blend which pulls in a lot of different cultural words and beliefs and practices and tries to mash it all into this, oh, this is the one thing that fits all. But it really, really doesn't work. Concepts like words like Yule, Ostara, Litha, Mabon, like they're taken from other languages, they're taken from other cultures and trying to, as I said, squish it together into one kind of, oh, well, this is the one thing that fits all. And the human experience doesn't really conform to a one thing fits all. And also, all of those words, by the way, Yule, Litha, Ostara, and Mabon aren't even Irish words. Again, nothing against those cultures or those kind of practices. I'm all in favor for people of those cultures exploring those practices. But speaking from the Irish pagan wheelhouse here, which is what we do at the Irish Pagan School, yeah, we don't have those, that we don't kind of acknowledge them. And again, there is no one set wheel of the year. What we do have is kind of two sequences or two series of cycles which we do observe and can acknowledge. And one is the fire festivals, which is tracking what people do in connection with the land, the seasons, and that kind of shift. And then, of course, there is the solar cycle. So it's the seasonal cycle, where what people do, and then there's the solar cycle, which is what observing what the sun does. And so the solar cycle is easy to answer because that's equinoxes and solstices. Now, the Irish words for those, the 4 quarters, we do have Irish words for those. There's Gaura, which is the winter kind of solstice. There is then, let me get it right, it's Gaura, Eric, Saura, and then Fover. And Gaura is kind of the winter solstice. Eric is the spring kind of shifting, the spring equinox. Then we have Sarah, which is the summer solstice, the longest kind of, and actually the word Sarah is our current word still in Irish for summer. And that's the summer longest day. And then we get the Fover, which is the autumn. That's the autumn equinox at that point. The way to acknowledge that wherever you happen to be is just to look up. Even if you're in the southern hemisphere, you can still observe and track summer equinoxes, solstices in the exact same way. Now, if you're an Irish pagan practicing person, the words, and I'll type the words in the description, and there will be subtitles on the video. I'll make sure that they're there so you can actually stop it and grab the spelling of those words. But it is Gaura for winter, which is the longest night. It's then Erech, which is for the spring. Then we have Sarah, which is the summer, which is the longest day. And then we have Fover, which is the autumn equinox. And yeah, we can just bop that one on the head and say, if you want to acknowledge the solar cycle as the Irish ancestors did on the landscape of Ireland, that is what you would do. Literally just look at the sun and observe those because they're astrological phenomena, so they're kind of going to be the same in the Southern Hemisphere. What is not the same in the Southern Hemisphere is, of course, seasons. And this comes back to this standardization and this globalization. We all have a calendar and everyone on this planet have conformed to the idea that it's January, February, March, blah, blah, blah. We are all following this one particular calendar. And I had this conversation recently at the local moot and I completely scandalized one of our engineer members. And I was like, it is all made up. And I will say that again to you folk here. The calendar, the whole structure of calendar that we observe and that we seem to be so fundamentally reliant upon is made up. In fact, we can know this for clear because July and August were later additions to the calendar because some Roman emperor wanted to have that acknowledged, i.e. Julius Caesar put his own month in and then Caesar Augustus put his own month in. They altered and changed the structure of the observed calendar that people were following just to have themselves written into forever. And it works. Here we are, like thousands of years later, and we're still mentioning or still conforming to this structure. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It has allowed us to communicate effectively across a vast amount of distance to bring our species together in some way, acknowledging this 12-month year. But again, it's made up. And when we get to accepting accepting the kind of the horror, really, that everything is a social construct that we have all agreed, which I will include things like gender and like all of that kind of stuff. It's a social construct. There is no binary. It doesn't exist, not even in nature. Happy Pride Month, by the way, because that's when I'm recording this. Not to be dating it, but yeah. Okay, back on point, John. The whole purpose then, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, okay, the seasons are going to be different because of how our orientation is to our sun, our local star, and how it rotates. For an Irish pagan person in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia or whatever, it can be a little bit conflicting. We're here in the Northern Hemisphere, and in Ireland, I'm talking about, for example, Bealtaine, which was the most recent fire festival observed here. That's the end of May. That's when the people will be taking their cattle out. They'd be coming out of the winter kind of storage, and the first kind of the energy and the growth is coming into the land. All of the crops are beginning to really go with their growth period. And it's a time of explosive energy, explosive growth, which means that a lot of protection magic and a protection focus is needed as you're taking your cattle and taking them up into the high hills. Now, that's happening based on the season observed here in Ireland, which is the different season or opposite season or an entirely different season based on somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere. And this is where it doesn't really align. I can't really turn around and say, oh, well, you have to observe Bealtaine in May because that's when Bealtaine is in May. But that's based on what people will be doing, the culture of what Irish people will be doing at that time frame for that season. The season is different in the Southern Hemisphere. And to acknowledge this other cycle, so again, we've bopped the astrological equinoxes and solars on the head. This other one, the fire festivals, isn't about a set particular day on a calendar. It's about the cultural importance and practices of what people would be doing at that time of year. But the people will be doing at that type of year will be based on the season that they are experiencing at that time. To list them all out, the 4 fire festivals acknowledged in Ireland are Imbolc, Bealtaine. My brain is just blipped. Apologies. It is Imbolc, Bealtaine, Lunasa. Me and Lou have beef, but that's a different story. Lunasa and then Samhain. So Imbolc is the coming out of winter, the coming out of the dark times. And it's the time where it begins to get a bit warmer, the days begin to get a bit longer. And that's when you would start to prepare your land for sowing, for growing. You do your clean outs, you do your preparations. Now, Imbolc is Imbolc. That is the practice that was being acknowledged by people. If we want to date Imbolc in the Northern Hemisphere, we date that to February, but how seasons are changing these days. That's when you would be observing Imbolc. Bealtaine then is where you've done your sowing, you've got your first crops into the ground, and then you're taking your cattle out to prepare them for the biggest growth of energy period. So that's Bealtaine. Again, in the Northern Hemisphere, it happens around May. Lunasa is your first harvesting. You've got your growing through the summertime. Into August is when Lunasa would be in the Northern Hemisphere. You would then reap, you get your first harvesting in and begin to gather all of your abundance together. And then, of course, Samhain is where you put everything away and prepare yourself for the long, dark time of winter. So you'd arrange your stores, you'd cull your herds, you'd lay in your supplies for when it's going to be dark and cold. Now, that is observed around October in the Northern Hemisphere. Now, if we remove the February, May, August, and October from that, if we remove the calendar date, we still have a fire festival cycle based on what people are doing. It's cleaning out and preparing for the year to come, Imbolc. It's laying in and preparing for all of the growth and the energy and the protection that you're going to need for growing your abundance, Bealtaine. It's then harvesting, bringing in, collecting and gathering everything that you have grown and have prepared your abundance throughout that period. And then Samhain, it's laying in your stores for when it's going to be dark and cold, where stuff isn't going to grow, and when you're going to need to keep family close and look after yourselves. So if you are in the Southern Hemisphere, you can acknowledge those important triggers without putting the months on it. If you need to put the months on it, then put the months on it that fit with the season and the observed experiences of the people where you are. And for those who have Irish ancestry or want to acknowledge or follow an Irish practice, use the words. Absolutely. Use Imbolc, Bealtaine, Lunasa, Samhain, but use them as it fits with your observed practice of what the people are doing where you are in the landscape. So that way you can still be connected with the ancestry, still be connected with Irish kind of culture, still be connected with Irish spiritual practice. But it doesn't have to be, okay, well, I have to celebrate Bealtaine in May in Ireland, even though it's harvest time where I am in the Southern Hemisphere. You're kind of clashing and causing a dissonance against something that is and should be part of the natural organic flow of you in your world, in your culture, experiencing your life. So again, to wrap it all around, there is no one set wheel of the year when it comes to Irish spirituality or Irish paganism. Take that concept, throw it out the window, or throw it in the sea or in the bucket or the bin or whatever, because some of the people who put that together were not the best people in the world, who were appropriating a lot of cultural stuff to build their own esoteric mysticism. But look at the cycles as they are observed where you are in the Southern Hemisphere. You'll be able to acknowledge solstices, equinoxes. That's going to be the same because that's our rotation around our nearest star. But then it's about taking the fire festival elements, using the words, using the names, but then mapping it to your experiences in the land where you are. Like, there's no point celebrating a time for protecting your abundance before the massive growth happens, which is Bealtaine, when your massive growth has already happened because you're in the Southern Hemisphere and it's seasonally a different point in the process. I know this hopefully has been a bit of, it's a bit of an awkward one to kind of get to, but by reframing it, not trying to break apart this concept of there is only one wheel, it's not even a wheel, it's cycles, and it's cycles based on readily observable experiences of the human condition where the human happens to be. If you would like to know more on this, if you'd like to get a little bit deeper, explore more in the whole focus of Irish paganism and how that can kind of help you with your practices, I do have a free resource for you. You go to irishpagan.school/3, and it is called The 3 Pillars of Contemporary Irish Paganism. It's breaking down this concept of the Wheel of the Year, the structures of Irish paganism, and saying, okay, how can you honor this spirituality or this practice, but also this kind of cultural ethnicity in a way as well that you're called to. Also, you don't have to have Irish ancestry to practice Irish paganism. You don't have to have DNA going back all the generations. All of us are an expression of humanity, which comes very uniquely in its own way. And so if you are called to explore this, then do absolutely explore this. If you're curious about it, do absolutely explore this, but just approach with respect and compassion and right relationship. This focus on understanding and creative care together, collaboratively, if that makes sense. That's a very important part of all of this practice for us at the Irish Pagan School, which is why we try and teach as much as we can and make it as available as much as we can to help people experience their spirituality where they are. Make it real, make it grounded, make it who you are, where you are, because that is what deep spiritual connection is actually really all about. It's not about, oh, in May I have to force myself to do Bealtaine because it's May in Ireland. Absolutely not. If the energy and the experience of Bealtaine falls at a different season, a different calendar time of the year, but it is in line with your seasonal experience where you are, then do the Bealtaine work then. Don't do the Bealtaine work in May just because you have to. Hopefully this has helped. We do have a lot of students. I'm very grateful and very delighted and honoured that we have many students in the Southern Hemisphere, some of which who join our live classes, even if it is 2 or 3 a.m. for their time, which I'm always aghast by, but I'm delighted. Hopefully this really helped you where you are. Irish paganism does not have one set wheel of the year. It is two separate cycles which are readily observable. It is the astrological cycle of the solstices and equinoxes, and then is the fire festival cycle, which is about people's behavior in line with the season they're experiencing, not a particular calendar day, date, etc., as expressed by someone in Ireland. So, yeah, we have lots of resources available. We have over a year's worth. If you were to do one thing every week, watch a video, do some reading or whatever, we've over a year. I think we're almost up to 2 years worth of free resources available at the Irish Pagan School, and we're constantly adding more. So if you are interested, make sure you do subscribe, follow along, check us out. If you have a question or a kesht is the Irish word for question, but comment wherever you're seeing this, throw it in. We'll always try and come back as best we can to answer a question, because that helps everyone in the long term. So until next time, look after yourself, take care, and slán. Goodbye.